Yes. Yes.
Sorry.
Thank you. You can make it very, very short. You can make it very, very short. Not too.
We don't do long ones here anyway. Okay, I'd like to welcome you here to the presentation by Gregor Schneider. Unfortunately, I just have to start by saying the organizer of the talks, my partner, Parveen, has been kind of struck down by illness. So I'll just kind of in deference to her read out. She's very efficient, so she was kind of types out what she's been saying. Gregor Schneider's work is powerful and disturbing. I recall my own cowardice 11 years ago when Archangel, who commissioned special projects, had arranged for him to use two adjoining houses in Bethnal Green. Visitors were to be allowed in strictly one at a time, first to one house and then to the other. That's all I knew. If I put a footnote here, it's not quite all she knew actually, because I'd just come out. I think possibly the source of her fear. But despite having much sought after tickets, that was enough for me, and I gave my ticket to someone else. Just as well, the descriptions of the experience inside the house, as I heard later, more than justified my cowardly decision to stay away. Perhaps my fright was premature, but perhaps as artists exist power at a distance, merely through the reading of information sheet. Certainly Gregor Schneider works with creepy, claustrophobic spaces, darkness and disorientation. The house in Germany on which he's been working for decades is called Tod's House, Death House. He relishes working with fears about strangers, the dark, fears of burial and suffocation. Sometimes visitors to his exhibitions are asked to sign disclaimers, which of course notches up the fear. I have the feeling that Gregor Schneider, in the telling of tales of Tod's House, will conjure for us something of the effects of the work on those who participate in it. In the UK, before the Archangel project in 2004, Gregor Schneider had showed in the 2000 Royal Academy's Apocalypse. In 2009, he was part of the Whitworth Gallery's exhibition on subversive spaces. She says, I won't enumerate his many exhibitions elsewhere. He won the Golden Lion at the Venice Biennale in 2001, has been a guest professor at several art schools, and since 2012 has been professor of sculpture at the Academy of Fine Art in Munich. I'd very much like you to welcome Gregor Schneider.
Thank you very much for your attention today. Thank you for your invitation. Today I don't want to show just three major works. I want to show more an overview about the different kind of works. But I think the main works are Haus UR in Germany, the Cube, and the Dying Room. These are the. So I'm showing also works which are not so important, but it gives you a good overview, and let me also think about what changed and shows development. I think there are three blocks. There are the beginning works, paintings, sculpturing, live actions. Then there's the house, UR, and Death House UR, which still exists till today. And since 10 years, all the works outside the house. In 2000, Norman Rosenthal did a piece in the Royal Academy of Arts, and in 2004 I did the Die Familie Schneider piece in London. No? So I'm happy to be back. There you saw the dying villages close to my hometown in this video. It gives you a little atmosphere where I'm coming from. So there's a big brown coal mining, the biggest in Europe, close to my hometown. I started in 1982 with paintings. Virgins raised, a little bit too long because I had a small room where I painted it. And I made exhibitions with these paintings, with an architect together or a solo show in my hometown. And I painted cries, and I made different, it went three-dimensional, and I made this kind of live actions. I did what I painted before. That's my explanation for this development. It was very simple why I started. I was thinking about it, why I started. It was just because my teacher told me I'm an artist, and I believed it. It was very simple. I think that's why I started. Since I operate as an artist in the so-called Haus UR since 1985. The letters UR stands for the address where the house is located, Unterheydener Straße in Rheydt. The letter UR could stand also for other words, which starts in German with UR. So unbekannter Raum, umbauter Raum, unmittelbarer Raum, also unknown room, enclosed room, invisible room, immediate area. So it has is full of association for me. For being able to distinguish the rooms, they are numbered continuously. UR means the whole room, and U means an intervention, a wall. Rooms are designated as that house UR, which are taken out of the house UR, which are reconstructed and transported to other places. Hannelore Reun and N. Schmidt becomes inhabitants of the rooms, who makes also exhibitions. I think the house UR is working with the basic problem of modern artistic avant-garde, unification of art and life. This is an early game. It's called Hinterhalt, ambush. The game consists of pitfalls. Participations could move masks under the floor with ropes. No one knew when someone falls. These are two identical, total insulated boxes. They are insulated with lead, acoustic sound material, glass wall. I once said about the practice, this is the work of someone who wanted to insulate himself. You have the possibility to sit in one of these two boxes. The idea was to sit in one box and the other box would be empty. Is there any way of sensing from outside, with whichever organ it might be, in which of two identical, completely insulated boxes someone is sitting? Does something of past events linger in the rooms, the places where they happened? Even if the room are transported somewhere else, does one notice where the stone painted entirely in black is walled in? This is one of the box, open. This is a place where an art student died in my neighborhood. I found this place, and later I reconstructed the found place in my studio. I looked for places charged with strong past event, but from which the event itself is absent. There you see the entrance and the room. It's a completely built room. Later, with inventory, it was called sleeping room. The room got also a lead floor underneath the carpet. This was the trail to build a space without going into the space I'm constructing. Later, it was plastered with cement from the outside and also adapted with sound-absorbing material. It was hanging from the ceiling like a house form. It was titled Apple. This is the concrete toilet. In 1989, I tried to insulate a completely room in the neighborhood. The visitors were arriving into an ordinary-looking corridor. They reached an open ordinary door. When someone opened the door, he saw a cross-section of the insulated room. The room were also insulated like the boxes you have seen before. Here I used 2 layers of lead, soundproofing material, glass wall, and concrete. When the door was open, you saw into a black hole. It was black without using paint. It was so strong insulated that the minimal background noise was missing. It was what we normally need for orientation. If somebody would enter this room, the door would close. It was a door without a door handle. So if you decide to enter this unknown space, it's not possible to come back. We could not distinguish the room anymore. So you could not enter, hear, smell the space anymore. You see again these dying villages close to my hometown. I made unknown work in these disappearing villages. So now we are back in the house. I've tried to work away from image, sculpture, and space. In this work, I tried to realize something I doesn't know myself. I'm by myself as a person, intractable, involved in the work. I'm not an actor outside the process, or rather, the work becomes the actor, making the artist disappear. Many of the works are easy to describe. Wall in front of wall, room in room, ceiling under ceiling. The builded rooms are made of walls, a floor, a ceiling, and they are copies of real existing rooms. The new created room is built into an already existing room or an exhibition room, for example. This new created room looks like absolutely ordinary. It isn't visible as a room, built into another room. The visitor enters a walkable 3-dimensional sculpture without the possibility to notice is firstly, the draft for the room has been all areas on the house. In the beginning of the work, which are one coffee room, one storeroom, a kitchen, floorboard, and basement. So I'm showing the works chronologic, and mostly the photos also made by myself, the videos also. This is the so-called Liebeslaube. It is a room where you can stay and don't need to leave. You enter this room through this cupboard. So there are 2 ways entering the house. You're going in, having coffee with me, coming out, and nothing reminds you as an artwork. But if you open in the wrong time, the wrong door, then you come between different layers. This is the total insulated guest room, a room which was completely from the outside insulated with lead, soundproofing material, and so on. So was an exit. And there you see how it was constructed, the different layers of lead. With the help of outside assembled lamps, fake times of day are simulated in the rooms. There are rooms that rotate on their own axis while an unsuspecting visitor sits at the coffee table. Ceilings rise up and down by 5 centimeters so slowly as to be unnoticeable. The working method is one of doubling, once again, just in, just underneath, just inside what already exists, or something sufficiently plausible in the place in question. No invention then, or if there is invention, it is unnoticeable, at least unobtrusive. In the work, doubling is a gesture which confirms what is present. Not in the form of a declaration or proof, but in the form of a lavish practice. What is present or potentially present is really repeated, completely reconstructed. I once said, I'm interested in free-willing action. So the work is an addition, something more, superfluous. At least in the sense of not wanting to be didactic, not wanting to express, to refer to anything. The doubling of what already exists legitimated the work in the simplest possible way. This resolves the question of legitimation, for example, without giving it any greater importance. The work is concentrated within itself. This room conception have been a new way in the end of the 80s to build and adapt rooms. The so-called installation art disappears by real copied rooms. There you see the mechanism. I have repeatedly built additional rooms in the house in Rheydt and dismantled them again with the effect that the open space have been tighter and tighter. The house itself has increased in mass and is now dangerous heavy, that gaps have arisen and that by now even I no longer capable of reconstructing the original form of the house without destroying the whole thing. In the end, however, it isn't all important to identify individually which wall, which room, which detail is original and which has been adapted. It is more important to note that the new room, the one in which one is accepted over time. And in fact, the time factor is important for the work, as one you can see, for example, in the videos. The effort to make comparisons wanes over time. You look at the wall, you listen to the space, you have to deal with the same thing over and over again, and at some point, something comes of it. Just as you can stand of hours by a wall and look at it. You do it once, twice, or a month or longer, and at some point you can tell everybody about the wall. The work is the construction of a wall in front of a wall, a room within a room. The work is there, visible, but it may be completely overlooked. Other works are hidden, invisible, but they may still influence perception. The work is a work which swallows itself. On the subject of the process of making the work unrecognizable, we do not wish to say that this is a negation of the figurative, a way of bringing the experience or event into the foreground. But it's certainly the case that the work is against the reification or objectification of the work. The work must exist. It must be there, even if in some of the works there is no way of knowing whether they really exist or what they are. But it must be not focused. It can be sensed, felt, remembered, suspected, imagined, but also seen, examined, and reflected. No means of perception is excluded. You see a chamber with older works. This is a box where I could concrete myself in a. This is a curious cabinet, also with older works, with this negative kernel. There we are in the basement. These are windows from the outside which look like eyes back to you when you entered it. It's also completely built, a floor in front of the window with a wall in between and so on. The work is like one is rambling through the layers and casings of his own brain and follows up the mechanism of the cognition and knowledge. There you see the last hole. It's also, I'm making a lot of photographs and videos, and the photographs show the conceptual way of working and something you can't build. This is the room built up in Rheydt and later in another place. And, but with a photograph, you can show one room built up in different places all over the world, again in one room. This is something you can't build, for example. There you see how it works. We cut the room, bring it to my studio, it's glued again together, and made transportable. Later, whole parts of the during decade permanent altered house you are in Rheydt has been taken out and built up in international galleries and museums. Since the beginning of the 19th, I'm working with subtly, hardly recognized rooms changed, like doubling of existing walls and rooms in galleries and museums. There's one room which was completely built up by 10 meters by 5 meter 76 and 325 meters high. It was a gallery which looked completely empty, was worked over 2 floors, and the visitors walked through and asked themselves, is this an exhibition? This is a pillar, also a wall in front of a wall. These are the doubled rooms. This is for me a very, very important place, Museumhaus Langehaus Esters in Krefeld. There also exists a chamber from Yves Klein, but he didn't build it, but he painted the chamber with white paint with a little bit dust in it. And I made 3 works in this exhibition. One room in front of the wall. I made one exchange with the wall in my house, and one work where we didn't spoke about. And this house is very important, and I reconstructed this space in my studio. I have also a big collection of reconstructed exhibition spaces, which was very important for me. This was also a big room in Basel. It was very heavy. This is a wall in front of a black stone and a red stone. Here you see the entrance of an exhibition, so you go directly into the rooms. You're not passing first the toilets or the bookshop. So I'm also experimenting a lot with how you get into a museum, how you get out of the museum. This is also a very important space. This is Kabinett für aktuelle Kunst. So also I reconstructed it once. And I made different exhibitions there. This is also a very important space for me personally. This is Foxhall in Warsaw. I also make a reconstruction of Foxhall. It's one of the isolated exhibition room I've seen ever, and but never ever there happened a human person, and I placed myself inside this exhibition space, and later I reconstructed the whole space with a performance. You see again this images aus Rheydt from Haus UR, and the other image of Totes Haus UR. In 2001, I did it in a bigger scale. 24 rooms were transported to Venice, to this island where everything has to take with, because you can't buy anything there. We are still in Venice. After Venice, in 2003, I showed the house also in Mocha in Los Angeles, and we cutted a new entrance into the museum to have an own entrance. I worked also with these garages in my neighborhood. This is still, for me, a very important piece. It was built in Kunsthalle Hamburg. It was 24 hours open, and the public could go in and out whenever they wanted. So the daily street life happened in the museum. So in the last years, I also searched for the unknown in social relevant, non-offhand accessible rooms. For example, high security area in Cuba, Camp 5, so-called black sites on the red light districted frequently by children, to a religion center. So this is a piece I found next to the museum in the red light district, and I reconstructed it into the museum, and it was 24 hours open. There you see the hole into the museum in Mocha in Los Angeles, where we built a new entrance. This is Die Familie Schneider. Maybe you already knew, or maybe not. Die Familie Schneider, by a private appointment, the visitor had the chance to visit one house after each other. The visitor enters rooms which were completely built into the existing rooms, including there you see it again, including the used-looking furniture. Everything in both houses was identical. In the rooms, there were twins doing identical things. After the first visitor entered the room, the work was destroyed, for me personally. For me, it was like watching myself walking through the house. For me, it was not frightened, because I knew the work will happen also without me. So for Die Familie Schneider was the experience of Venice very important, because when I came back from Venice, there still the visitors were running through my house. So everything is very, very strong connected, and finally you don't know what connections there are. And this I'm sometimes really surprised about that. Yes, this is Cube, Venice. This work becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. It's a long story, and we could make a talk just about this piece. Maybe just a short explanation. It's a sculpture which is in form and function unique. It's inspired from Kaaba in Mecca, but also inspired from Malevich, black square on white ground, for example. And also stands chronologically in a reference to works I did before. You have seen the black stones in the wall, the total isolated guest room, and so on. And also, when you build a room inside a room, you have always black shadows. Black shadows. So the black shadow is always there. So I worked with a Muslim in this time. In 2003, I started to make research about it. And he told me, if you are interested in rooms, you have to get informed about Kaaba and Mecca. And I did it. I didn't learn anything at school. I was fascinated about that. Kaaba means translated cubic cube. And where does it come from? That this square, and I'm often building square, is so fascinating till the present. Where's the relationship, the connection? Where does it come from? And so this is not a Kaaba sculpture. The Kaaba has a white ceiling, had a water drain, it had a golden door 2 meters up from the ground, and so on. This is an abstract form. But sure, it should be also possible to interpret this as a Kaaba. If not, it would not be in an independent sculpture. So I was invited to do it. I got the official letter to do it. And it was stopped because of political doubt. The president wrote me, we can't do this because of the political nature of the piece. Okay, later on, it was planned 2 times in Berlin, and it happened the same. It happens the same. So I made such a shit experience with this sculpture. It spent so much time, energy, and money, and my whole infrastructure in the art world was completely broken. In Hamburg was it realized. Hubertus Gassner did it, and everybody loved it. And but after Hamburg, the story went on. In New York, in Paris, in Kiev, all over the world, curators, tried to realize it. But nobody was talking about the reason why. In Berlin, they told me it's because of what was the sentence? Political circumstances. So I couldn't believe that in the art world, it's not possible to speak about the fears and unknowledgement if something is not happen. Not everything needs to be built, sure, but it should be, we should give everything a platform to discuss it. And there were so many trials, and we could talk about this night. Really, nights. Today I have to tell you it's not possible to build anymore. In 2005, it was unknowledgement and fears. And today, it's the only person who made it public was Arthur de Puri in Switzerland, he wrote me and that this institution wanted to stop him the running costs if this will happen. This is another piece I did for a church. It's a cryonic tank. It's called Phoenix. In 2006, I erected the cryo tank Phoenix 1 in the church of St. Peter in Cologne. It is an apparatus in which a person could have himself frozen in the hope of being brought back to life in a distant future. So I thought it's the right piece for a church, the fear of death and the desire of immortality. So it's to be here and in the hereafter. This is another piece in Naples, a long black dead end. Doing my research, I found these cells. Why torture is a detailed reconstruction of several found photos of Camp 5, Guantanamo Bay in Cuba. I did it doing my research for the Kaaba, for the cube. I found also the cells. The fascinating thing from the Kaaba is that in 2003, you couldn't find any image from the inside. Now it's possible to look at it. And I found suddenly these cells were labeled on the floor with a distance to Kaaba, helping prayers to find the right wing. I built it first I constructed them in 2005. I built it in Belgium first, and then it were transported to Düsseldorf. There are abstract reconstructions because I couldn't find more infos about it. Different kind of rooms, interrogation rooms. And here's also interesting how you went into the museum, you passed these corridors which are mirrored and doubled. Finally, you were not possible to go back because the doors fell into locks. And you had to go through the wet cell and the cooler, and finally you stand in front of the museum outside somewhere where you didn't know where you are. Goes on like this. I have also another works where was my try not to build rooms anymore. This is an example. So the title is also the description of the time. It was in Magazin the Staatsoper Berlin. It was also a very difficult exhibition for me because of working with such a big exhibition hall. That's why 100 actors built a wait list. So every visitor has had the same experience. They has to wait to see the exhibition. But the wait list has been the exhibition. I'm searching for how people can be the artwork at themselves. And I was invited to Australia. After the trouble with the cube, I wanted to do something more relaxing at the beach. And I wanted to do something site-specific. The beach is very important for the national identity in Australia. And when I arrived, I read about racism riots at the beach. The very first time ever happened in Australia. And I wanted to organize the beach life in the mostly simple way with these fences. And the people loved it. This is, I make a jump. This is the dining room. It's a reconstruction of a museum room where I did my first museums exhibition. It was shown in Innsbruck in Austria, but not in Germany. It's also a shame because we had a big discussion in Germany. But now I'm going to make a book about it after now 7 years. This is the cut I made into the museum. This is the museum of my hometown. It's Abteiberg Museum, very important museum, because it was the first museum, also one of the first which was built for temporary art. Hans Hollein built it, and I built an extension for it in 2008. It also has a lot of references. The size was 14 by 14 meters, the same size like the cube. And I was inspired to do that when I was standing in front of the cube, looking upside down, and then you have really the emotion. You want to walk inside, into the black, and that's why I did it. So the visitors are walking into a inside and disappear completely in this blackness. And then they come through this hole you have seen, this cut into the museum, and inside they saw a collection of different rooms out of different places. This is a street out of these dying villages, which are not anymore exist. Different kind of rooms. This is also something different. And this time I was working with streets. It was called It's All Right. It was also a trail not to build rooms anymore. I traveled with a model to Kolkata in India. It was a model of the street in front of my house. And the artist on place in India built this street in the typical way they use for constructing site with bamboo, with clay. So it was not only a technical transforming, but also culturally transforming. They built it 30 meters high in the sky. Street has also a different connotation in this area. It was built just for 8 days. It was rotated 90 degrees, so inside everything was also rotated. And the people came through a hole inside, and inside we built up a temple. A temple I built with a local artist, the goodness. And finally, we put as much as possible on trucks. I did it with this Evergreen Club. And we throw the goddesses, the gods, and parts of the material into the Ganges. And later on, so it was for me a trial also to keep the work away. But finally, I took everything out of the river and brought it back to my studio in Rheydt. Now I have these things in my studio, and I wanted to install it in a German church, but I failed. It's a shame. It's a shame. But this is also another discussion. Why this did not happen? That's another story. This is a thing in a museum in Madrid. I didn't like the museum, and this is just a pipe where you can enter and leave the museum through the pipe. So you don't see the museum, but you are in. Speed up a little bit. This is the white room and the dark room. I made it first in 2008 in Paris. So the white room is connected with a corridor to the black room, and in between they are connected with a ventilator. But you're passing first the white room. I did a lot last year. I did many things, different things with the theater world. And this is the piece Neuerburgstraße 21. This is also the real existing address. And finally, I was surprised that it's again 21 beach cells and so on. This is also surprised me very much. And visitors just enter one bathroom. And after that, another bathroom. And after that, another bathroom, and so on. 21 times the people. So, but where I want to talk about finally is about this piece, Hauptstraße 85a. It's one of the last synagogue in the Rhineland area, which were not destroyed during the October pogrom in 1938. After most of Stommelns, this is the so-called village, Jews had left town, no worship service could take place there anymore. And in 1937, the Jewish community sold the building to a neighboring farmer. The new owner covered the Star of David on the facade with mortar. And when the SA came to burn the building down, he declared to them that it was no longer a synagogue. So this building just survived because the Nazis did not recognize it as a synagogue. My plan was to make the synagogue to disappear again, as is if it had never existed. I have all traces of the synagogue removed, the Star of David on the entrance gate, the road sign of the car drivers and so on. On the other hand, I gave this place an address with a number which did not exist before. So, Hauptstraße 85a, and this address exists till today. People asked suddenly again, where's the synagogue? And it reminded the citizen that the Yiddish community's spiritual center did not come back into this place till today. There was another question, how much past ideology is today still in new homes? There was also others. So I made this piece together with the other house you will see later. This is a jump to Yokohama. I did this is a room, it was called German Angst. It was built inside the museum and you could walk through. This is another exhibition I also did with the theater world. This is also interesting that I got a lot of support from the theater world to do things. Again, these pipes, and you were entering a museum from the back, but through the functional rooms. So in this house I built together with the synagogue. It's Unterheydener Straße 202. It's also about the German trauma. This house is 70 meters close to my house in my hometown. 70 meters, so you can see it. It's the birthhouse of Joseph Goebbels, born there in 1897. One of Adolf Hitler's most devoted followers, and for example, also responsible for the October pogroms in 1938. I could not believe that it's possible to find such a house and that it still exists. It was full with the library. Nazi books, newspapers about racism and phrenology, for example, this pseudo-doctrine of face and character. A cryometer was also there. So the host of the Nazi ideology existed still in the house. And Joseph Goebbels wrote by himself in his diaries about this house. A resident hoisted a white flag in front of this birthhouse in the end of the war. This is what he described in his diaries. And because of that, he started attacks. He describes in his diaries exactly who and how he wants to kill and already killed. And in his diary, I think for nobody, this house can be indifferent. For me, are houses written books. I wanted to understand, I wanted to change it, to transform it into the present. But how do you can work with this? And with this question, I'm not alone. We have in Germany a big history working with the war story again and again, and each generation does it in a new way. And I did it in this way. I went in, slept there, tried to eat there, and then I deconstructed the birth room and the whole house. There's also another way of working. You know? So I'm starting to remove rooms. And in the last years, I'm also working with whole houses, including the outside facade. So in the whole rubbish I brought to Warsaw. Warsaw, it was done with Anna Rottenberg. In Germany, I got this question, why Warsaw? Why? I asked, what is the right place? So on there, I presented all the different thoughts and things I did with this house. For example, I put also a little stick where I put all the information about the house in. I scanned the house also. For me personally, this was a political statement to do this. And I'm very happy that I did it. Thank you for your attention. Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. He's happy to take questions. Does anyone want to? Anyone need a? Ah.
Hello, I just want to ask you that from the beginning, did you always do the work on your house yourselves, or did you work with craftsmen on changing your house?
I like doing things by myself because I feel better with this. So it's I don't like to have always people around me, myself. So, and it's also it's also a question of financing things. You know, I still have a very small company, so it's a 1.5 person group, and I'm driving the truck by myself. And the forklift, I have a forklift driving license, but I don't want to sit in the morning in my bed and I don't want to think about what other persons should do over the day. And it's also difficult to organize because I'm not building one prototype and then making an addition of 10 out of it. You know? Sure, there are different kind of works. When we do Art Angel, then we have a big organization, a big professional team helping realizing things. Or in museums, it's a different situation. But in my studio and in my hometown, I'm trying to work by myself. And I like it. I like to work. For me, it is really to sit in my office. It's a nightmare. But sure, I'm my own museum. So I build up a little Schneider world. You know, I'm collecting my own rooms. I have now over 200 rooms collected in my studio. But why I'm doing this? Because nobody, not the museums, does. So I have to do it by myself. Otherwise, the things get not collected. So it's an infrastructure what I needed to build up to make this artwork happen. And the museums are still today are not interested in ordinary rooms, in the history of rooms, and they are not working with rooms like they do with paintings. Look at exhibitions, they're reconstructing everything when they have money for the constructing side. That's what happened till today in many museums. So I'm I'm a big fan of mine, so I'm collecting the whole thing. Yes.
Then,
I'm also kept Die Familie Schneider. It's also interesting. I took everything transportable to my home. And some of the rooms were also presented in different museums. But also this, so I never throw the things away. But it's not a concept which is good for other artists. I wouldn't take this as an example. I would make certifications. It's easier.
I was wondering, could you talk a little bit more about the performance actions that you did right at the start of your work?
I mean, we could talk about the rooms, also different kind of aspects. We could talk about the painting aspect or whatever. And, but sure, it has also to do with walking in, walking out, and the behavior in rooms. So I'm coming from live actions. It has to do also doing it has to do something with a physical present. But sure, there are different rooms which offer different way of functions. Sure. But there are also rooms which are not functional, which you can't reach anymore. But sure, it's open for different use, for cooking, but also for dying. And dying is still living. So, for example, the coffee room is for having coffee and drinking coffee.
I've got several questions, Gregor. Wonderful. How do you see yourself? I've got two. One is a practical question and one's more kind of theoretical. How do you see yourself in relation to the history of German art? I'm thinking of Kurt Schwitters, Joseph Beuys, Bauhaus, etc. That's one question. And the second question, completely separate, is when you did the big Biennale installation, what was left in the Urhaus in Rheydt? What was there? Or was it not there? So the first one is about what I call yourself in a tradition of German art, which is the way I perhaps see you, but artists perhaps don't see themselves in traditions like someone like myself might want to see you.
We are all in relationships and in traditions, and we all have a father and mother, and I'm trying to speak about the technique of the way how things conceptually done, and how is the work I'm doing with rooms. So I'd like to speak about that. And technically, there's also a developing, in the develop of going away from image sculpture to the installation art, and later real existing rooms. So this is also a line you could make. I like to speak about the techniques, the concept, or let's think about it. And also the exhibition Die Familie Schneider showed that there were rooms copied in London. So it's not only about German trauma. It's a technique where I'm trying to talk about. And the other thing is there are different kind of rooms, and I'm experimenting in a different way with these rooms. Some were completely taken out of the house, like you saw, cut it, or from the beginning built transportable, like die Familie Schneider was also built transportable. Then you have a hole inside the house, which I'm trying to close, or it depends on where I'm working on. And there are other rooms, like the doubled room Berlin, you have seen in the beginning, they were reconstructed at another place. It often comes from the room itself, how I'm working with it. If I want to build, so this is my exclamation for this question. Maybe you have other you think in a different way about that, but this is my thought about it. Yes. 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 Yes.
Where do you think a room begins? Because I'm very interested that you have some of your works are to do with insulating outside from inside, and some are to do with the relation of the surface of the inside with the interior of the substance of the wall. What I'm thinking of is in the human face or the body, the skin is what we take to be the person, and yet an inch below that skin, or even a millimeter, there's just meat, flesh. And I'm trying to think about what you feel about the liminal limits, as it were, of the wall, in the wallpaper, the paneling, and then there's something about the kind of psychological tectonics of the surface.
It's an interesting question. When does the space, the room starts? No, this was the question. In the Islamic history, the world, it's Kaaba and Mecca, the first room which was ever built. But it's not an Islamic building. It's calligraphy is Islamic, but the building was also before. It was used as a Kaaba, a religious space. I would answer this very clear. This question: the room starts when I build it. So for me, only the things which are really built are present. So this would be my answer. And this is this is the way of Selbstvergewisserung. I don't know. Maybe you can't translate it in English. Trying to feel sure of something when one is not really. So this is maybe so. As a sculptor, I'm believe in the doings, and this is the way of communication and explanation. That's this would be my answer. And the interesting thing is, this is so fascinating for me. You can really build something we are not able to describe anymore. So, so you are building rooms which you know you have done them. They are existing like a hidden wall. You know there's something behind, but you can't make a photograph anymore of it. You can't make a measurement anymore of it, but you know it's there. And if it starts to getting into daily life and ordinary behavior, you are inside the work, but you can't speak about it anymore. You could give them a number. That's why I try to give them numberings. And this is very fascinating for me till today. And that's why it's still ongoing, still gives me interests and power doing it.
Could I just push Brian's question a little bit further? Because I think in a sense the one question that arises is when one looks at any form of building, one partly kind of intuits what's behind it. But also in a way fantasizes what's behind it. So the point about the face, one looks at someone's face, and insofar as you take it to have expression, you feel that whatever is being expressed goes back. In a sense, goes back behind it. But as Brian says, if you've got a face, but a millimeter below is just meat. And I think it sort of turns on the question, which is, you know, is actually in a way a kind of very traditional architectural question as to what effects are produced by a certain kind of tectonics, or should tectonics be regarded as the special effects of having a fantasy about what's behind? If you see what I mean.
There's a question more of clarity and confusion, and you know, where clarity meets confusion. See what I mean? You know, the confusion. You enjoy confusion, Gregor. Spatial confusion. And you do it for yourself or for us?
I mean, there are works about communication and works about excommunication. I mean, everybody's communicating. No? We are communicating. So, always. Huh? I think it had different reasons why artists do things. I mean, here it's also often also a question of possibilities. I mean, started in this privately spaces also because there were no other options to do it somewhere else. So, but sure, everybody is communicating. Everybody. I think I can't image a human life without communication. Maybe in a different way, different ways of communication. Everything is a sign into the world.
You took me once to those incredible deserted villages, which are huge. I mean,
Yes.
people don't, I think, perhaps this audience, if they don't know, that near your house, just north of your house,
10 minutes away.
incredibly extraordinary, completely, scarily deserted villages. Then you might as well be in a kind of Germanic Dikiriko space, like space. And so in some ways, what you've done in your own house is related to certain different realities. But they're vast, these spaces, that forcibly have been made deserts, if you like, for reasons that I didn't quite understand. These empty houses. Do you know about them? Do people here know about them? I think nobody knows about them in this country. I doubt whether many people in Germany have really understood that they exist.
Yes. Thank you so much for coming today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.